Good afternoon, everyone. Name is Kellye Sanders, Planning Coordinator. Item number 10, located at 834 Leal Street, is a request to rezone from R6 to R6 CD for 4 dwelling units. 35 notices were sent, 2 received in favor, 1 opposed, and Gardendale Neighborhood Association is opposed. And there was no response from the West End Hope in Action Neighborhood Association. Outside 200 feet, we did receive 3 in favor, 4 opposed, and Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association is in favor. The existing R6 is an appropriate zoning for the property, and the proposed R6 CD for 4 dwelling units, staff doesn't find appropriate. There are zoning districts on the block face that permit 2 or 3 dwelling units. Thus, staff recommends an alternate for 3 dwelling units to allow additional units but stay consistent with what's established in the area. The request would allow additional density, which is consistent with the strategic housing implementation plan. Again, staff recommends denial with an alternate recommendation of R6 CD for 3 dwelling units, and the applicant is present for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If we could have the applicant, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matthew Gilbert with that was quick. Matthew Gilbert with Ortiz McKnight, 112 East Pecan, here representing the property owner for 834 Leal Street. This property is approximately 1.87 acres in size. As staff mentioned, it is in the general vicinity of 3 neighborhoods, Prospect Hill, Gardendale, and West End Hope in Action. This is an overview of the subject property's location in relation to those 3 neighborhoods. As part of our application, we did reach out to these 3 neighborhoods. Gardendale is in opposition, Prospect Hill is in support, and West End Hope in Action is in opposition as well. This request is for rezoning from R6 to R6 CD with a conditional use for 4 dwelling units. Previously, this property was zoned MF33 before the Gardendale large area rezoning, which was undertaken earlier this year. The property is surrounded by other residential properties at varying residential densities. The image on the screen has check boxes for other properties along the block that also have these conditional use permits for additional dwelling units. As staff mentioned, this request is consistent with the city's strategic housing implementation plan by providing additional housing. This is a unique request. Here is a timeline showing exactly kind of how we got here. The property, as I said, was subject to the Gardendale large area rezoning, which commenced in 2022. Public hearing notices were actually sent to the estate of the previous owner. The current property owner purchased the property February of this year, immediately engaged an architect, all before the effective date of the Gardendale large area rezoning. A certificate of determination was obtained in June for multifamily usage, and it wasn't until August that plan review actually caught the discrepancy, which was followed immediately by the property owner engaging our firm to submit this request. Our initial outreach was to Prospect Hill and to Gardendale. We followed that up with outreach to West End Hope in Action, eventually submitted the rezoning application. We hosted a community meeting with Gardendale and West End Hope in Action on December 1st, and conducted block walking last Thursday to gather community support. Here is a frontage of the property just for reference. And here is the site plan. The existing house is shown as the darker hued. All of the proposed conditional use dwelling units are in white, located actually behind the existing residence. 4 units is requested, although staff is recommending 3 units. The primary reason for the 4 units is to preserve that existing residential space at 834 Leal Street. 3 units would be feasible, but that would require revisiting of these designs in order to assess whether preservation of that existing residence would still be feasible. If not, it would likely result in that property being raised and then construction of the staff's recommended 3 units. Here is a shot of the rear of the house. It does abut an improved alleyway. The alleyway is used by residents and by the city for access and for utilities. Parking would be located both in the rear and in the front. If you could actually go back, please. 5 spaces would be located along the alleyway to the south, along with 2 to 3 spaces up north, which satisfies the UDC's parking standards. There would be space for additional parking along Leal Street, but of course we would try to keep all of that parking internal on the property. I don't think staff had this updated count, but we did, like I said, conduct block walking late last week. We did try to go door to door, avoiding some of the dogs in the area. We were able to gather 3 signatures of support from property owners within 200 feet. Again, doesn't seem like a lot, but just access to some of the properties was unobtainable. And just to quickly wrap up, the overall request is for rezoning to R6 CD with conditional use for 4 dwelling units. The request is consistent with the overall development in the area, along with staff's strategic housing implementation plan. I went through that mistaken timing just to give kind of background to the property and what kind of brought us here today. But the increased density and sensitivity to the neighborhood through that preservation of the existing residents we think is definitely warranted here. And I will remain available for questions.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. I just wanted to clarify. I had said that Prospect Hill was outside 200 feet, but that is incorrect. They are within 200 feet, so their approval is accepted within 200 feet. And then as to just to clarify with what Matthew had just said about the 3, we did receive signatures, but they were not the same names as the owners, so I was to believe those are tenants, and so that was why they were put in the outside 200 feet notification, since they were not the owners who signed it.
They still live there.
Oh, all right, thanks.
Again, they weren't matching the owners' names, so.
Only owners have the rights, or what?
It is for, according to state law, it is the owners who have the, who are recommended within 200 feet.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so public comment.
We do. We have Mr. Russell Fallon with Prospect Hill.
How y'all doing? Russell Fallon, President, Prospect Hill on the west side. In 2410 West Commerce, And when I got the zoning a couple of months, I went by the property to go look at it, and called Felix, the architect, and went over a couple of things with him. I was impressed with the design that went up, still keeping the original design in the front, and then parking in the rear. I always believed parking in the rear was always a good thing, and a lot of contractors don't like doing it because then they have to try and asphalt the alley when a lot of times they're not asphalted. In this case, parking in the rear, I was really appreciative that we got in enough parking. So we all support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And was that the extent of public comment?
That is it for public comment.
Okay, great. Commissioner Bustamante, to you for questions.
All right, staff, this is a conditional use, whether accepted as submitted or with the alternate recommendation from staff, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So that means that the applicant will be bound to the site plan
Correct.
one way or the other.
Yes.
Okay. So if the applicant were to determine that they were not happy with an alternate recommendation of 3 units and determine to demolish the existing structure, they would have to come back here. Is that right? If they wanted to build 4 units on that property or 3 units on that property.
Correct. If they decide that they need to demolish the first building, they could either rebuild to match the square footage and dimensions, or they would need to revise their site plan, which if it's an expansion from what was approved, then it would be a major site plan amendment. But if it's smaller than what was approved, it would be a minor site plan amendment, which can be done administratively.
But regardless, it's however many units are specified today.
Right. I think those are all my questions for right now.
All right. Other commissioners, questions? Commissioner Watson.
For the applicant, I may have missed this detail in the midst of your presentation, so I apologize if I did, but can you just clarify, the 4 units are going to be rented or sold to property owners?
They're proposed for rent.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, commissioners on my left? Commissioner Whitsitt.
You indicate that Monclova's on the back is an alley, but it's got a name, and then there's, down the street, there's 2 lots that look like they're platted on Monclova. Could you replat this into more than the single lot?
That I'm not sure. I'm here with the architect, the project architect, who could probably expand on that.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. I'm Felix Ziga, the architect on the project. To answer your question, with the new zoning R6, I don't think a replat into 2 lots would be feasible because we wouldn't have enough square footage. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, commissioners on my left? Commissioners on my right. Commissioner Reyes.
Thank you, Chairman. A question for staff. Proposed parking, can that go on existing utility easements, like, for example, in the alley, as long as they're on private property?
I don't believe you're allowed to park in the alley. They'd have to park on, they can't create an obstacle where traffic has to go through, or trash, or whatever kind of mechanism has to go through there. They can't block that, so it would need to be on site.
Correct. And that's what's shown. Thank you.
And I do want to clarify, based on the acreage, if this is accurate, they would be able to plat the lot into 2 lots. But that does not affect the zoning request because it's the overall site plan and whatever density is agreed upon today.
How big is the lot?
Oh, I just did the math. It's 1873 of an acre. So it's, oh, did I do the math wrong?
It's approximately over 8,000 square feet.
But
8160.
I did do the math wrong.
Okay.
It came out to 12,000 before, so yeah. So good question.
But Monclova is a street, is it not? Not an alley. I mean, I've never seen an alley named.
It could be that it's an alley, but it has a street name, but it's not an official, like, local street. But I can find out for you.
Yeah, just I was curious because somebody was able to plat 2 lots down the way on Monclova when y'all showed the map.
Can I address that question? I do know the answer off the top of my head. So Monclova Alley is an alley, but it does service public utilities and also public services like trash pickup and such. And you're right, there are some properties that face Monclova Alley. So it's a street for all intents and purposes in terms that it can be used as a right-of-way, but it is a category of an alley due to its dimensions. Traffic, just to point of clarification, traffic and all plan review has been completed with the exception of zoning. So if zoning were to approve this, we'd be able to get a permit, within 24 hours. Thank you.
And that's exactly right. It is classified an alley, it's not in the street listing. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Commissioner Ortiz.
Just one question for Matthew. Are they going to be using Monclova as an entryway to the property, or no, just strictly through Leal?
They would access the parking on.
Yes. So they will be entering through Monclova?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No question.
All right, any other questions? Looking left, looking right. All right, back to you, Commissioner Bustamante, for a motion.
All right. So this is a difficult case, made much more difficult by the fact that there are 2 neighborhood associations, one against, one in favor. We have a good plan here, I think. There is, a density there that can raise issues, and I can see how the neighborhood association split. What is most disturbing about this and is sort of how this ended up before us in the first place. As mentioned in the timeline, this was a case where the large area rezoning was occurring during the sale of this property. Because of that failure in a handoff of information between the current listed noticed owner and the prospective owner, the number of units that were planned and that they had in good faith, I believe, begun working on would have fallen as of right, or would have been allowed as of right, prior to the large area rezoning. That, however, cuts both ways. On the property owner's part, the new property owner's part, it indicates sort of an equity interest, an equitable interest in allowing them to move forward. However, that is balanced with the surrounding uses and the expectations of the neighborhood associations, particularly in this case, the one that was against this rezoning, because they thought they had settled this issue with the large area rezoning to protect single-family households. At the end of the day, I am stuck choosing between the alternate recommendation and what's submitted. I think what's submitted is well designed, which is not our purview, but can be appropriate here. I am concerned about the removal of the existing structure and demolishing of it. However, I do not want to be held hostage by it either. And so, at this point, I'm going to move for approval in line with staff's recommendation of R6 conditional use for 3 units.
All right, the motion is for approval of staff's recommendation of 3 units. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That was Commissioner Barros, I believe. All right, discussion, commissioners, looking left. Commissioner Watson.
In a strange turn of events for me, I will not be supporting the motion because unlike one of the earlier presentations we saw, this site plan indicates exactly how the property is going to be used and is easy to understand. And it makes sense to me in terms of the equitable interest concern that Commissioner Bustamante thoroughly explained, particularly because they were willing to incorporate preservation of an existing structure, and because the design and the use of these units is providing attainable housing stock while respecting the character of the neighborhood. And so for me, I believe that this is a good proposal, and I think it does fit. And considering Prospect Hill is the neighborhood association within 200 feet, I believe supporting their position on this does reflect the interest of the community overall, and also considering the extensive community engagement done in this case, I think the neighborhood had fair expectation about what was going on here, and ample opportunity and adjustment has been made to reflect that.
All right, thank you. Other commissioners on my left, comments?
Rather than going into much, I'm going to say ditto to what Commissioner Watson has said. I experienced something like this myself a long time ago where something got changed without our knowing it, and so I understand, and I do believe this is a well-designed project.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Ortiz.
One question, actually, for Seth. So just maybe you can educate me here. So this zoning that happened, was this part of the unification that rezoned it, or this is the old zoning?
It was part of a large area rezoning, so a resolution was done by council to initiate analysis and rezoning of the area based on what was on the ground at the time.
So what was the initial, what was it previously?
It was MF 33.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
All right, commissioners on my right, discussion. Oh, man, they had a bunch of people. All right. Yeah. No, they always put me right here. This is my seat. This is actually a difficult one for me on deciding as well. And what's weird is I know we're not supposed to get into design. Sorry. My only concern with the site plan is there's not a lot that it's almost 100% impervious cover. But I do recognize that the trade-off to that is that they are smaller units and they aren't large 2.5-story things towering over the neighborhood, over the adjacent single-family 1-story buildings. So I am still formulating how I am going to vote, but for right now, the motion is for approval of staff's recommendation of 3 units. Motion was made by Commissioner Bustamante. Commissioner Barros, I believe you made the second, correct? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bustamante?
Aye.
Commissioner Barros? Commissioner Watson?
No.
Commissioner Reyes?
No.
Commissioner Hui?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitsett?
No.
Commissioner Chase?
No.
Commissioner Kellum?
No.
Chair Sipes?
No.
Motion fails.
All right. Is there a motion to reconsider?
Motion to reconsider.
All right.
Second.
A motion to reconsider by Commissioner Watson, second by Commissioner Chase. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Chase?
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Hui?
No.
Commissioner Ortiz?
No.
Commissioner Barros? Commissioner Whitsett?
Yes.
Commissioner Kellum?
Yes.
Commissioner Bustamante?
Aye.
Chair Sipes?
Yes.
Motion passes to reconsider.
All right. Is there an alternative motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the rezoning as presented.
Second.
All right. Was that you, Commissioner Kellum? All right. Motion to approve as submitted by Commissioner Watson, second by Commissioner Kellum. Do we need discussion? Any discussion? Looking left? None. Looking right? None. All right. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kellum?
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Hui?
No.
Commissioner Ortiz?
No.
Commissioner Barros? Commissioner Whitsett?
Yes.
Commissioner Chase?
Yes.
Commissioner Bustamante?
Aye.
Chair Sipes?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Well, thank you.